Alright class, first off as always, good day, I'm glad you're here. Today we are going to be looking at the three branches of government. Primarily we're going to be looking at the executive and the legislative. Judicial, and if we have time we'll get to it. But I really want us to look at the executive, mainly because this is an election year and I want you guys to know about the president, things like that. Okay, so that's what today's lesson is about. So here's the thing. The objective today, we're going to look at analyze the importance and the amount of positions that create the executive branch. Now, the thing is, a lot of people think that the executive branch just means the president. That's not the case. Okay, there's more jobs in the executive branch, and it's not just the president. Okay, so we're going to be looking at that. The next thing we're going to be doing is examining the requirements needed to be president. You have to remember this was created back in the 1780s, 1790s. So their requirements back then may seem like, well, that's it, And the last thing is create an argument on whether a president should be allowed to run for more than 2 terms. We're actually going to be looking at that, like why all of a sudden now they can't do 2, but back in the day they could run more as many times they wanted. Okay, so we're going to be doing that. So let's look at your warm-up picture. So there it is. Analyze it. What do you see? What do you think this artist is trying to say? Okay, so go ahead, write your response. Pause the video because we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. So the executive branch is one of 3 branches in our government. Okay, now like I told you before, they were the executive, this one, the legislative, which is Congress, and judicial, which is the Supreme Court. Now, the executive branch, their main purpose is to carry out and execute the nation's laws, make sure that the laws passed by Congress are being enforced and are being followed by not only the people, but also agencies and things like that, that they're not overstepping their boundaries. Okay. Now, the person in charge is called the president, and he or she, depending, is the chief. Okay. Now, along with being the president, the executive branch includes other positions. I'm sure you guys know about the vice president, but there's also a thing called the cabinet, which there's a lot of positions in it. There's about 15 in total, but the 15 are the main jobs. There are a bunch. I mean, I think there's 100 or a couple hundred different little minor jobs, minor agency, minor boards, committees, commissions that the president puts his people in. Okay, so this picture you see to your right, that is the main people. So you got the president, vice president, secretary of state. They basically make sure that things are going well in the nation. They tell the president what's going on. If something's happening in a state or if there's a movement going on, they tell them. Secretary of Treasury, they make sure that the money's coming in, that the interest rate should be going up, going down, things like that. Talk about trades. Secretary of Defense, just as it sounds, they are in charge of our national security and things like that. Attorney General, that's the top lawyer in our country. And if, let's say, something goes to the Supreme Court, the Attorney General can basically step up and say, okay, I'm going to argue the case, or they can have one of their people, argue the case. Secretary of Agriculture, there you go. Secretary of Labor, Health and Service, Energy, Transportation, Education. All these positions the president fills when they become president. They tend to pick people who know what they're talking about, know what they're doing. Sometimes they hire their friends, the people who helped them get elected. So it depends. All right, so Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution says the executive power shall be vested in the President of the United States of America. So again, the President not only heads the executive branch, the federal government, also is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, which means that the generals can't just do whatever they want. They have to get the president's approval. If the president also, says, what, some kid says, I want to join the army, I'm going to kill these people, blah, 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 and the president's like, this kid's like, they can say no. The president can deny anybody into the armed forces. That's one of their powers. Again, commander in chief. Now, originally, the framers kind of debated on having a single president, or should it be two? And if there's two, if there's a tie, and there are decisions, what they one says one person says the other. What if you have three? Then it's like, well, then why not have five or seven? So it's kind of like, yeah, let's just stick with one. Now, we've mentioned this before, but I'm going to say it again. Some groups felt that the president should be powerful, and people like the Federalists, they felt that he or she, whoever, should be the president should be powerful. The Anti-Federalists felt that no, the executive branch should be weaker. It should not be the most powerful, especially when it's just at that time, like one main person and a couple smaller people, as opposed to Congress, where it's a large group of people who are voted by the people, who basically represent the people. Okay. So here's my first question to you. Do you think that the executive office should be powerful, midway powerful, even powerful but not too powerful, or do you think they should be weak? And why do you think this? So there's the writing prompt on the bottom. Go ahead and justify your answer. So I believe the power of the executive branch should be powerful, medium, weak, medium power, weak power, and why. Okay, so pause the video, take a couple minutes to answer this question. So the executive branch also has the EOP, the Executive Office of the President. This was created in 1939 by FDR. Basically, he's like, you know what? I need more people, to do things to help me out. So this group is made up of several positions. One is a chief of staff, office management and budget, the Council of Economic Affairs Advisors. I'm sorry, the National Security Council, and the White House Communications and the press secretary. Now, the press secretary is one of those people who's gotten a lot of light now. Before they were just like they were seen as a person just to give the briefings and that's it. Now they seem to be like they have to have some type of personality and things like that, because that's who the media sees first when they want to ask questions about the president, what they're doing, and things like that. That press secretary is the person who does that. Okay, so sometimes they like it. Sometimes those people, it drives them nuts. Because they say one thing and then the president, says something opposite, like right away or later on, or they say, I didn't say that, and it makes the press secretary look kind of like an idiot. Now, Article 2 of the Constitution specifies that a president should be elected to a term of 4 years. So one term is 4 years. Now, according to its terms, only a natural-born citizen of the United States of at least 35 years of age who has lived in the United States for 14 years can be eligible to be president. So first thing is you have to be born in the United States. You can't be born in like Japan. You can't be born in Germany, things like that. So back in like 2000 and something, like 2004, 2006, somewhere in there, people were talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger being the president. But it's like he can't. He was born in Austria. Oh, but he's a citizen now. It doesn't matter. He wasn't born here. So you could be born here and then like go live somewhere else for a bit, but if you come back, you have to live here for at least 14 years before you could be eligible to be president. Okay, that's it. That's the requirements. The There's nothing about education, so the person does not have to be the smartest person. The last president not to go to college was Harry S. Truman, and that was in 19 what was that 44 to 1950 or 52? Yeah, 52. Yeah, 44 to 52. So he that wasn't that long ago. That was like almost like 80 years. That's the last time a president who did not go to college became president. Okay. Now there has been only one president who has ever served more than 2 terms. That was FDR. And the thing is, he died during his 4th term. He got elected and then he dies. Now all other presidents seem to have restrained themselves to 2 terms. But the thing is, some of them actually wanted to go more, but the people said no. They didn't like them. They felt that they weren't that great, those 2 terms, so why get a third one? But a lot of them did stop at 2 because of George Washington. Washington said, I'm not going to keep being here because I don't want to be like a king. Okay, but FDR, however, the people kept electing him, right? And then people saw him as a guy who could handle what was happening in the United States at that time. So this picture you see to your right, that is one of the most famous pictures because that's when FDR died. This soldier and people would lined up along the railroad tracks to see his body go by, and this famous picture of the soldier playing a song for the president and is in tears because you have to remember some of these people, this is the only president they knew. He was basically there for 12 years, going to be 16 years. So that some people, they grew up with him. And he's the one who basically helped them get from out of the Great Depression and leading them into World War II. And here he is gone. So in 1951, Congress ratified the 22nd Amendment, which then limits the president to 2 terms, no matter what, no ands, if, or buts about it. At most, a president can serve, I believe it's 13 years, the max 12, 13 years. Basically, if a president dies like in the middle of their term or sooner, that the vice president takes over and, or is it? It's 10 years. Then they can take over and still serve their 2 terms, okay, because of the time restraint type of thing. So here's my question to you. Do you think that it's a good idea to limit a president to 2 terms? Justify your reasoning. Okay, so do you think it's a good idea? Now, pause the video, answer this question because we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. So hopefully you answer that question because now we got the exit ticket. The first question is, which of the secretary positions do you think is the most important and why? So hopefully you have the Google Doc on one side, this YouTube video on the other, and you can go back and look at the secretary positions and you tell me which one do you think is the most important. Okay, the second one is, do you think the requirements needed to be president should be updated? What do you think? Do you think that just being 35, living here for 14 years, the last 14 years, and you're a natural born citizen, do you think that should be just the bare minimum? Or do you think there should be more? That the president should have this, have that, whether it's education, age-wise, whatever it may be, experience, in whatever may be politics or law or whatever. So tell me, and if you do say, oh, they need to be a certain age or they need to have some type of education, put a specific, at least what? What do you think? Okay, they can't be older than what age? Things like that. Okay, the last one is again kind of a connection of the last question we just had. But the thing is, I did put something in. I want you to read this because it says, should a president be allowed to run for more than 2 terms? Everyone tends to say, yeah, yeah, they should. They think about their own favorite president, whoever it may be. But I want you to think too, what if the president you don't like is able to run for more than 2 terms? This isn't just applied to, oh, my favorite president can run anytime they want. Everyone else, no. No, this is by law type of thing. Do you think there should be a law saying that they can run as many times as they want? And that includes, again, the presidents that you don't like, that they'll be able to run multiple times. Okay, so it's not just your favorite, it's all presidents, even the bad ones that you don't like or you despise or you just like, oh, they're the worst. Okay, so think of all. Okay, so once you answer that, you're done for this class. Um, be sure that you guys hit the submit button. Okay, but you guys have a good day. All right, so take care, be safe.